Hello and welcome to the informational and on-demand webinar for the 2025 Active Transportation Planning Assistance Opportunity from the Minnesota Department of Transportation. For the next 30 to 40 minutes or so, I will tell you about this upcoming opportunity and all you can expect in your application process. My name is Will Wislow, and I'm Minnesota's Active Transportation Coordinator at the Minnesota Department of Transportation. Here are the things that we will cover today. We'll talk generally about active transportation planning in Minnesota, and then dive more deeply into what is entailed in a planning assistance grant. This includes things like the application timeline, a guide to what you will expect in the application, as well as how you will be scored if you choose to apply. There will also be ways for you to submit questions about this program. So how does the state of Minnesota think about active transportation? We see active transportation as being an excellent vehicle, opportunity, way to help communities tackle or improve four different things. The first is that we think walking and biking can help build social connections between people in the communities, whether it is folks who live down the street, folks who live across the other side of town, or folks that they may interact with in another kind of context. We also think that improving the environment for walking and biking can increase safety outcomes for people who use our transportation system, both in terms of reducing the number of crashes, but also creating safer environments to protect folks from other kinds of safety concerns. Walking and biking and active transportation more generally can also improve community health outcomes, whether you're thinking about physical or mental health, whether you're thinking about building healthy habits for long-term well-being, or even things like increasing access to healthy food. Lastly, at MnDOT, we think improving the walking and biking environment in any community can help reduce the environmental impacts of transportation on that place, either through reducing the number of pollutants or creating just friendlier, quieter places for people to be, live, and travel. I've mentioned active transportation and also talked about walking and biking already in the first 3 minutes of this presentation. But I think it's probably worth stepping back just half a step and talking about what is active transportation. In the state of Minnesota, and specifically with the Active Transportation Program, we use the definition created by AASHTO, a national organization. And that definition is using human-powered means of travel to get from one place to another, which includes walking, bicycling, and the use of mobility assistive devices. It may also incorporate other human scale modes like electric-powered, electric-assisted, or micromobility devices such as e-bikes and scooters. This aligns closely with the definition of active transportation in Minnesota statute. Okay, that was a nice level setting. Now we're going to talk about the active transportation planning assistance grants or awards themselves. The first thing to know is that an active transportation planning assistance award can help your community in many different ways. These are just some of the ways that we think going through a planning process provided by the state can help different places. A planning assistance process can help build a shared vision for what active transportation looks like in your community. It can help you better understand what's working well now, and importantly, what can be improved in your community in the future. This process can also help you connect with community members to understand their unique challenges for getting around on foot or by bicycle, and especially for connecting with community members who may face increased barriers to getting around that way. This planning process will help pull together stakeholders and discuss their unique roles in achieving future change. And lastly, we introduce quick build projects or other supplemental technical assistance as a way to conduct further local engagement and evaluation of walking and bicycling. Our planning process has 4 main steps. They're listed here on the screen. We start with intake, which is our opportunity to gather as much as possible about what is already going on in your community and use that as our base. From there, we quickly move into an insight phase and try to learn what it's like to travel on foot or by bike through your community and what policies, programs, and infrastructures affect how people travel. We'll turn those insights into action during the iterate phase and try to figure out what to do next. And then lastly, the implementation and evaluation phase. This is where we chart out together what your next steps will be for implementing your active transportation action plan and how you can measure progress and measure success. For our active transportation planning assistance program, we ultimately create an action plan. It's not just a plan, it's an action plan. And you might wonder, what do you mean by that? The important thing to know about it is that we will leave your community and leave you with a document that has specific steps for improving the environment for walking and biking where you are over the course of the next 5 to 10 years. It's action oriented, and we try to break it down as well as possible to make it easy and implementable for you to carry this plan forward. But beyond the basics of being action oriented, we can create different kinds of plans for you. We try to respond to local needs and interests, and thereby we have a number of different formats of planning that we can offer to you. The most common type of plan that communities ask for is a bicycle or pedestrian or combined master plan type document for their entire community, from one border of the community to the other. We also could do a micromobility plan, but no one has asked us for that yet. We have also completed a number of corridor plans and look at specific lengths of our transportation infrastructure that can have a wider impact on active transportation. We can also have a destination-based plan. Think about getting folks to different kinds of amenities or community locations, parks, government institutions, healthy food. These can be plans based on specific categories of destinations. If you're familiar with the Safe Routes to School program, Safe Routes to School plans are similar to this in that they are trying to get people, specifically young people, to a certain kind of destination, specifically schools. Lastly, we are open to your creative ideas of other kinds of active transportation plans that can help you move the needle in your community. So if you have an interesting, out-of-the-box, or just plain old wacky idea, it's worth considering it, and we would consider it too. So the place that you will go to apply for planning assistance, should you choose to, is MnDOT's Active Transportation Program website. If you are listening to and watching this webinar, you have probably already been there, but it's also listed at the bottom of every single slide on this presentation. Here you will find information about planning assistance, much of it covered here today. The guide for completing the application is built into the web page itself. The scoring rubric is also listed. You can find a downloadable application outline or draft that you can use to think about your answers in advance. And then the web-based application tool. All applications for this program must be submitted online. We do not accept any over email or regular mail. There is a link to the web-based application on our webpage. So who is eligible to apply for the Active Transportation Planning Assistance Program? Lots of entities. Many of these are probably very familiar to you. We are happy to welcome cities, counties, federally recognized tribal nations, regional development organizations, and metropolitan planning organizations, as well as 501c3 nonprofit organizations and other kinds of groups. If you are coming from a nonprofit organization, we do require a letter of support from the local government who will be the owner and implementer of the plan. We also can welcome applicants from other political subdivisions. You may wish to reach out in advance and make sure that your political subdivision is eligible. To give you an example of the kinds of Minnesota communities who have already completed active transportation planning assistance, take a look at this list. You'll see communities that are large and small, rural and urban and suburban, from the northernmost parts of the state down to the bottom. Communities that are listed in red are those that are undergoing planning assistance as you are listening to me. So this is what the application timeline looks like. I'm not sure when you're listening to this, but I'm going to assume many of you are listening to it in October 2025. Our application period is a little bit longer than we have had in the past, and it will run through January 16th. Applications are due at 5 p.m. on that day and no later. After the application period ends, the review process for all applications will occur in the following month and should end around February 16th. After that, MnDOT will start its awards process, reaching out to successful and unsuccessful applicants, and intends to wrap that up within another month. And we expect for planning for our next cohort of communities to take place starting at the end of March or early April. I'll just note that we know everyone's time is valuable, and we have designed a very rapid planning process. So you can expect the planning assistance to take place over the course of 6 or maybe 8 months. And then we will follow up with an implementation project, which I'll describe more in just a few moments. So let's say you've made the jump, you've listened to this webinar, you've applied and were accepted to the Active Transportation Planning Assistance Program. What do you actually get? Here is a very high-level overview of that. Your community will receive help from a selected consultant. We don't require you to provide any matching funds, but we do expect a significant investment of your time and capacity over the course of the planning period. This is in part to be able to spread our planning assistance to more communities across Minnesota, and also to ensure that when our planning process is done, your local leaders and participants in this program have a strong understanding of where the plan came from, where it intends to go, and how to implement it. So just want to say, if you apply for this and are accepted, you will be very involved in the process. One thing you do not get is any funding directly from MnDOT. You are simply receiving technical assistance from our planning consultants and planning staff. The team will provide monthly reports, and we, as a MnDOT staff, make sure that the plan and planning process is on track. And by the end of it, you will receive a bright and shiny new action plan PDF, as well as an implementation project. I want to share a couple of case studies from the history of our program. This is a plan that we developed for the city of Wheaton in west central Minnesota. It's fairly small, a couple thousand people. Over the course of our planning process, we identified a number of key routes that the local community wanted to improve and focus on. You can see them in this picture, color-coded by different kinds of routes and different kinds of user. A green loop around the community and a central corridor in orange that you see going right through the middle of downtown. It also identified intersections that were particularly hairy, challenging, unsafe, or in need of some improvement. We ultimately recommended a mix of short, medium, and long-term action steps in these 5 different categories to try and help the community prioritize and figure out what can come next to make these changes happen. Additionally, we include in the plan a toolbox of different infrastructure treatments and program activities and other ideas tailored to that community context. So one thing to know about Wheaton is it's one of the many rural and agricultural communities in our state. And so our suggested infrastructure improvements included only treatments that can accommodate large agricultural vehicles. We don't expect every community to be able to handle the same kinds of things as some of our largest cities. This is one of the examples of our stranger or more complicated or unique planning proposals. This proposal came from a nonprofit organization called the Asian American Business Resilience Network. AABRN, for short, is a nonprofit owner of a parcel of land in the city of St. Paul, and they wanted to look at active transportation as a part of a small area plan for an area that's going to be significantly redeveloped. Ultimately, what our planning team is going to be providing are things like typical sections for active transportation infrastructure. These would be what roads would look like for larger kind of arterial roads or smaller roads that serve one building or 2 buildings. A larger network synthesis of what is happening around this small area plan, as well as some greatest hits engagement methods, walk audits, bike audits, focus groups, and much more. Lastly, one more kind of unique planning project that we've had is for the city of Minneapolis. The city asked us to help update their youth walking and biking route map. This was primarily an exercise in corralling lots of geospatial data to create an incredible resource for the students of Minneapolis public schools especially. One kind of fun thing about this is after we developed the geospatial data and passed it on to the city, they were able to work with our partner program at MnDOT, Safe Routes to School, to secure funding to turn this into a paper map that every school student gets to take home if they want it. Here's just a close-up of what that kind of looked like for them. Okay, I mentioned implementation projects a couple of times, and we have changed our approach to this slightly. Before, our program used to offer a demonstration project as the next implementation phase after a planning process is done. And what we heard is that not every community wants that or thinks that that's the next thing to help advance or improve walking and biking in their community. So we now have a menu of 6 different things. Demonstration projects are certainly still popular, and many communities choose to try and test out an infrastructure idea before they actually pay for the concrete to put it on the ground. Other communities have been interested in basic cost scoping estimates and preliminary engineering design layouts. Let's say a community knows that they want to fix a couple of intersections, but need to get a little bit more rigorous thinking around what that will look like and how much it might cost before they go out and apply for some funding. Other communities realize at the end of planning that they need to do a little bit more sustained engagement and help people imagine a corridor or a particular intersection. And so some communities have been interested in photomorphology, visioning graphics, photo renderings, different names for the same kind of thing. These are kind of computer-generated images that show how road can change. Still more communities need to start at the program or policy level. They might be a little bit further behind in that sense. And so we can help them map out what they need to do to change their local policies, ordinances, and so on in a way that is tailored to their community and regional context. We can offer targeted supplemental engagement activities at the end of our planning assistance. If something has bubbled up through planning that the community wants to know a lot more about in a deeper way, we can provide that as well. And lastly, strategic communications development for active transportation programming of any kind is a supplemental technical assistance or implementation project that we can offer. Got a couple of examples here. I mentioned demonstration projects right at the top, or quick builds as some call them. This is one that we did in the city of Duluth. It's on West Superior Street. And in a very narrow sense, we created a temporary set of curb extensions with a median refuge island in the center. You can see these two people walking through it. This project was really interesting because it was led by a local nonprofit in Duluth called Equilibrium 3, their neighborhood organization. And one thing that they wanted to do is engage the residents in this neighborhood, as well as the business community and some of their volunteer base, in what this street could look like with an upcoming reconstruction that's happening a couple years out still. So they really tried to reimagine it with some placemaking elements. You can see the plant at the forefront of this picture, as well as the aesthetic pavement treatment that they applied using some of the neighborhood branded colors. One more example. I mentioned photo renderings as well. This is one from Howard Ganeson Road, really just not too far away from the demonstration project I just showed you in St. Louis County. This is a very typical county highway that they had big ideas for. And to help make those big ideas seem much more real, they enlisted our photo rendering help. And they have continued engagement long after the planning process has ended, hoping to get some neighborhood buy-in on these ideas. Okay, so that's the kind of planning and implementation support you'll get if you apply and are selected. But before all that can even happen, we need to know what you need to apply. I'm going to go through the 7 different areas of our application and talk briefly about each of them. At the top, we need some of the basics. Community information. These are simple things like the name of who is applying and how many people live there. Should be pretty straightforward. Next up, we use some tools and your local knowledge to assess equity impacts and how active transportation planning can improve outcomes for people that live in your community. So we have 2 parts of this. The first is something that you will not need to complete, but we calculate your community's priority area for walking score. This is based off of several mappable factors in a GIS tool that MnDOT has created. It's called PAWS. To supplement that, we know that not everything is captured by data, and so we will ask you a narrative question to help fill in the gaps of that kind of data set. And you can talk about how active transportation planning and implementation can help advance equity in your own community. This can be talking about the way that walking and biking infrastructure can help people get to important destinations or cross an existing barrier, how we can bring people together and potentially invest in disinvested communities. Next, we're really interested to know how a planning process will help meet your community needs. We have 4 questions in this section. We want to learn a little bit about how the plan will help you engage with people in your community and learn from them. We'd like to know how active transportation planning and implementation process over the course of a number of years can help people swap trips from their single occupancy vehicles and actually use this walking and biking network and walking and biking programming a little bit more. Third, we also want to know how this planning process fits into your other community goals. This can be things like a city's comprehensive plan, or just other things that have bubbled up through the normal business of living in a place and sharing ideas together. Last, how will a demonstration project or another implementation project improve active transportation in your community? One thing that is really important to us at MnDOT is making sure that you have a good team to help implement this planning process. So we're going to ask you about it. You'll identify who the lead of the planning process will be on the local side, and then suggest the other people who are going to be helping you. I'll just note, we do not penalize any community for not having a pre-existing group. These can be folks who you know but haven't asked specifically to participate in a planning process. It's good to get their buy-in before you apply, of course, but this is more so who would be at the table when you start planning. We really want you to bring a range of different perspectives on the community and the viewpoints that they offer through their experience. We'll also ask you to describe how each of those people will bring their talents to benefit this planning process. And lastly, we want to make sure that you have someone who's looking at a locally relevant priority population from their perspective, so that we can make sure we are addressing the people who may rely on active transportation in your community the most. We also want to know what's already happening. It may not be a lot, or maybe a ton of things that you're already working on related to walking and biking. Mostly we just want to know what is going on. So share local policies and plans that may impact how people walk or bike around their community, or possibly even prevent people from walking or biking. We'd like to know the kind of work in this area that you've already done as a community. And lastly, we'd like to know what a successful planning process would look like and mean to you. Okay, and then finally, the boring administrative section. We need a little bit of supporting documentation. For sure, we will need a letter of support from the city, township, county government that this plan is planning for. So you can think of it as the roadway authority, whatever the case may be. The transportation network that's going to be impacted and discussed within this planning process needs to be on board. There's also an optional second letter of support that you can provide. This can be from a local partner, could be a school district, public health practitioner, a small advocacy group, TZD professional towards zero death. It's sort of who is the relevant partner to your community. The final two supporting documents are required. So if they aren't provided, we cannot accept your application. The first is an affidavit of non-collusion. You will find this on the Active Transportation Planning Assistance page. You'll need to complete it, and also note that this requires notarization, so plan in advance for completing that. The second is a conflict of interest checklist and disclosure form. Again, this is required. You need to complete it. This one does not require notarization, but it is worth taking a good look at. Instructions on how to fill those out are included on them. Can kind of reiterate some things right here. The application guide and resources. There is a web-based guide for the solicitation. You will find it on the page that you got here from. The entirety of the guide for the solicitation is on that web page. You will also find a downloadable Word application. This is for you to draft your answers. But don't forget that you do need to apply online through our form software. If you have any reasonable accommodations, please reach out to me at my email address, and I or someone else from my team will respond. A little bit more about scoring just to close things out. We have a total of 115 points available for this solicitation. You'll see that some of the emphasis of where the points are related to the equity score, community need, team, and roles. So not to give you too much unsolicited advice, but pay attention to those sections there. Last little thing about scoring is we use community size as our way to weigh communities against each other. So Minnesota has a city classification system. It's based on population. First class cities, there are 4 of them in Minnesota at this point: Minneapolis, St. Paul, Duluth, and Rochester. Technically, they are communities that are 100,000 people or greater, or have been at that population recently. Second class cities are from 25,000 up to 99,999. The third class cities are from the 10,000 to 25,000 range, and fourth class cities are from the 0 to, I guess, 1 to 10,000 range. We score towns with our fourth class cities. We also have a special category for tribal nations that are not aligned with the city classification guides. And if you have questions about how we will score county applications or multi-jurisdictional applications, you can see them here on the screen. Okay, this is the last slide. Your deadline for completing this application is January 16th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Those applications need to be submitted online. You can find the link to the online application at the Active Transportation Program Planning Assistance webpage. If you listen to all this, talk about it with some of your peers in your local community and decide now is not the right time, we anticipate having this opportunity available again in fall of 2026 for planning to take place in 2027. Thank you for listening along to the webinar related to our planning assistance program at MnDOT for active transportation. If you have any questions, please reach out to the email address listed on your screen. Happy applying. Thank you. Bye.